In 2017, 350 people, many who were serving long prison sentences, were exonerated because their DNA was discovered to be conflicting with the evidence long ago collected from the crime scene. In about 75 of these cases, one or more eyewitness misidentifications contributed significantly as evidence for the conviction. Furthermore, there are many more prisoners who sit waiting and who do not have the opportunity to have their case samples retested. There are many issues with eyewitness testimony. There are many factors that can influence an eyewitness testimony. Some include memory contamination, stress, suspect lineups, how investigators phrase the questions, the witness's eyesight, the cross-race effect, and witness bias. This is the case with Demjanjuk. There was a lack of DNA evidence. Thus, his trial rested on the eyewitness testimony from Holocaust survivors. However, there is research that shows that eyewitness testimonies are not always accurate in identifying the perpetrator of the crime. Despite this fact, juries rely heavily on eyewitness testimony. Demjanjuk's case raises many questions about eyewitness validity, especially with the years passed since the crime was committed. Demjanjuk was accused of being SS Nazi death camp guard Ivan the Terrible. Ivan the Terrible was known for being one of the cruelest Nazi soldiers. He was stationed outside the gas chamber at Treblinka death camp in Poland. With a sword, Ivan the Terrible would torture men, women, and children. There are accounts that he would slice off women's breasts and push children into the gas chambers with relish. Demjanjuk was apprehended in August of 1985 in Seven Hills, Cleveland, where he worked at the Ford auto plant. He had a wife and 3 children. He was known as the perfect immigrant, working hard, giving back to his community, and living the American dream. Until the Office of Special Investigations, aka the Nazi Hunting Unit, traced back a list of war criminals living in the United States to Demjanjuk. After the camps were liberated and survivors moved to America, they were interviewed about their experiences, and many of them pointed to Demjanjuk's photo and identified him as Ivan the Terrible. However, the United States could not charge him for the crime since they had no jurisdiction. He was then extradited to Israel as a war criminal. His trial lasted 18 months and ultimately ended with Demjanjuk being convicted guilty on all counts of accessory to murder, war crimes, and crimes against humanity. However, 5 years later, the Israeli Supreme Court overturned the conviction when new evidence showed that another Ukrainian was probably the notorious Ivan. However, Demjanjuk remained imprisoned, for there is enough evidence to believe that he was a Nazi soldier at Sobibor and Treblinka, just not Ivan the Terrible. The most crucial evidence against Demjanjuk was the SS identity pass bearing his name and accurate personal details. His defense lawyer, Mark O'Connor, saw John Demjanjuk as being framed by the Soviets to drive a wedge between the two anti-Soviet groups in the United States, the Ukrainians and the Jewish. However, it is the other evidence that has caused the most controversy in the Demjanjuk case. There were 5 eyewitness testimonies at the trial in Israel, and all were survivors of the Nazi death camp Treblinka. All the eyewitness accounts were heartbreaking, yet Demjanjuk never changed his blank expression. However, there was a lot of evidence that disputed many of the eyewitness accounts. Yet, in the end, Demjanjuk was convicted of all charges. In conclusion, the Demjanjuk case offers a lesson in the validity of eyewitness testimony. There is a lot of research that shows that there are flaws in eyewitness testimonies. The United States judicial system must start to question the weight that is placed on eyewitness testimonies.